is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil 4 gameplay for you. And today I got two mysteries. One with the original Resident Evil 4 and the other with Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now just to start off from the beginning, these are not major things. These are not lore changing things. Just simple, let's just have a little bit of fun with this video. Things that may have happened that maybe you didn't even notice. Because this first one from Resident Evil 4, I'll be honest, I never really even paid attention to this recently. And the other one I've kind of noticed, but I just took a while for me to get around to talking about it. But as I said, don't take this too seriously. Have a little fun, and maybe you can actually come up with an actual theory or reason why these things are. But without further ado, let's get right into this. Now, the first one for Resident Evil 4 is, well, you're kind of watching it. I did a mystery on the police officers, how they got to the village so fast when they got their car knocked off the edge. But this one actually happens a little bit before it as well as after it. And it's with the first enemies you encounter in this game. As you have the cutscene where the Ganados swings the axe at you, and after you tell it to freeze and it ignores your every command, you basically proceed to shoot and put it down. Now, you might think, well, what's the problem? What's the mystery? Well, here's the thing. If you notice, I got the vest, so this is a New Game Plus. This is me continuing an earlier file, and I had a loaded out Blacktail armed to the teeth. But if you might not realize it, I aimed at his head, and his head didn't explode, which isn't crazy, but, sometimes you shoot a fully aimed out weapon at their head, their head doesn't explode. But you know what? I was curious, so I tried out the riot gun fully amped up, then, yeah, his head didn't explode. Did I whiff it? I nearly always get headshots exploding and when I aim at the head. I don't know, maybe I'm just bad at aiming, or maybe it's just one of those weird moments. Well, you know what? I'll just get the rifle, the semi-rifle, and this should definitely... Yeah, okay, something's wrong here. Why is the head not exploding? I'm getting a straight-on shot with the head, what is going on here? Is my game glitched out? Well, you know what? I know one way to solve it. The Magnum. I'll get the Killer 7 since it's my favorite looking Magnum of the game, and it gives me that Terminator feel. That definitely has to do the trick, and if he doesn't... Yeah. The first enemy apparently cannot have his head exploded no matter how you shoot at it. And I've just been like, huh? I never really noticed that before, but here's the thing. It doesn't stop there, because when you fight the people outside the house they're about to invade after the cutscene, yep, you guessed it, their head doesn't explode. Huh. Now, why is that the way it is? I've never really, as I said, noticed it. I've been playing this game since it came out. It's my all-time favorite video game. God knows how many times I've started playing it, but I was just weirded out. At first, I thought maybe my game was glitched, but I know that wasn't the case. So what I did just to confirm is I got the rifle, and basically had the scope zoomed on all their heads, and I wanted to confirm how far does this go. Because for some reason, these first few enemies, you cannot explode their head. You can hit them in the head, and they'll go down, even with an amped up rifle here, but at the end of the day, they're not exploding. So I wanted to see just how far it possibly goes. And what I would eventually find out is this actually goes all the way up towards the village. So the whole first section, when you start the game, before you enter the village where you look at the binoculars of the one police officer set on fire, you cannot actually explode their head. Now, I was trying to come up with a theory of why that is the way it is. And I think, honestly, we could have our creative theory of maybe there's some lore reason for it. I don't really think that is. I think, honestly, what happened was that the people who made this game just forgot to turn it on so that their heads could explode. And they just kind of left that way, because let's be honest, I've never really heard anyone talk about it, and I never really noticed it. It's just something that just came to mind, just some random thing. And then again, that's how my brain works sometimes. It's something random that will just stick to my head. But honestly, that's what happens, because obviously when you get to the village here, and the first enemies you do shoot after the whole cutscene with the binoculars, you could just pop heads like it's normal, and everyone's just blowing up weird. So, long story short, from the first enemy you encounter all the way to the last enemy before you get into the village, you cannot explode their head. And as I said, I give you my theory on what it is, but maybe you guys give me a more creative, weird, fun lore theory. Just have a little fun with this. But I guess if there is one mystery I did encounter while doing this footage, it was this. Now, please tell me how this happened right here. I got the riot shotgun out, and yeah, did you see that guy? He got sent like a rocket. What did I do? Pack-a-punch the gun from Call of Duty? Watch this in instant replay. Holy crap. Maybe that's the real mystery we need to solve. But long story short, not a big major thing, but just a weird thing that just happened in the game that, I'll be honest, I never really noticed. But let's move on to the next one, which is going to be in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Now, it's a little bit different from the original one, because the original one, you don't have this whole thing. But in Resident Evil 4 Remake, now this is one I've noticed since the beginning. I just never got around to talking about it. And I do like to get back to doing some more mysteries or unusual things in the Resident Evil games. But during Chapter 3, you fight the Del Lago. And, it's an iconic, memorable boss fight, regardless if you like the original one more or the remake one. But the remake one definitely has something that sticks out. And you're not going to notice it during the fight. Obviously, you fight the Del Lago, you keep harpooning him, until eventually he goes down. But something really unusual happens after you beat him. So when you get to Chapter 4, one of the things that's cool is you can actually have the boat and you can maneuver around. There's a lot more exploration in this compared to the original one, where there's small little islands and stuff like that. But as you go out there to the middle of the lake, you notice something. Something big is right in the middle of it. And what do you see? You see a bunch of, I guess, trees and branches surrounding a big, gigantic boat with a top over it. Now, here's the obvious question. Where in the world did this boat come from? When we fought the Del Lago, there was no semblance of a gigantic boat floating in the middle of this lake, on top of having smaller ripped-apart boats surrounded by a bunch of logs. There was the logs, but there wasn't all this stuff all clammed together as one. And as we were fighting the Del Lago, we didn't see any of that stuff. I mean, there was none of this in that boss fight. I mean, at all. And, I went back and replayed the boss fight, but there was no such thing as something this massive. This isn't like some small little boat that the Ganados were dumping the police officer in the waterfront. This is a massive boat that you could fit 20 plus people on, if not more. So where in the world did this whole thing come from? So I wanted to do my homework. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't something I was missing. So I decided to do a little exploration and going around the place. So obviously I replayed the boss fight just to see if there was something I was missing. But as you can see here, you have parts of boats barely floating, but they weren't surrounded by a bunch of branches. You have, the tree logs there, but nothing that even remotely resembles a boat of that size still floating and stuff, even remotely in this whole boss fight. But you might be thinking, well, maybe it was on the side. It's hard to see the side when you're going in this boss fight. So I went to explore the side. So I went back to Chapter 1 and went on to the little part right before you find Luis and then going on the hill pier here. And I'm just looking with my scope to see if maybe there's something off to the side that's not near this area. And it's hard to see a little bit because of the fog, but overall, obviously we can see in the lake there's no gigantic boat here that's sitting there, but we also have a few boats on the shore to our right here that are kind of, dismembered, they're sinking. But the thing is, none of them even come close to the size. That one, I guess right there would be about the size of that boat, but that one's obviously not the thing because it doesn't have a top and it's too far damaged to even remotely be close to anything to resemble what was in the middle of the lake here. And I tried to go outside the camera to see maybe there's something I wasn't seeing, but none of these boats are even going to be in the water, let alone all the way out there, let alone floating. So, yeah, everything on this side kind of is checked off the thing. It couldn't be any one of these things. So, yeah, there is no way any of these boats could be that boat in the center. So, this whole area that you first see in Chapter 1 is basically off the list. And then I decided to go right before Chapter 3, right before you fight the Del Lago, when we have the binocular scene, just to see if there's anything else I'm looking. There's a little shack where you go in the beginning of Chapter 4. There's that little small boat I was mentioning earlier with the Ganados dumping the police officer, and I'm looking at the shoreline. There's a chicken egg aisle, is what I like to call it. And yeah, there is no logical explanation at all. This boat just, and that's where Chapter 1 pier is. It's still there. There's no logical explanation for this. This giant boat just basically came out of nowhere. Basically. I mean, there is no logical explanation. It's nowhere on this screen at this point, and it just magically came out of nowhere. And the thing is, I can maybe understand a small boat maybe just came out of nowhere, but this is a big boat, and it's floating, and it has a top part. And as I said, just to, do my homework even more, I went around with the little boat, going around all the sides, and there's just there's no explanation. Everything else is still accounted for that we saw in Chapter 1. We see nothing of that size that's still floating, because that's the thing. It would have to still be floating. It just couldn't magically just come up out of nowhere. I mean, maybe you could possibly say the theory of the Del Lago dying maybe made it surface, but I don't know. And maybe that's what they honestly think happened. I have no idea. But yeah, there's just no way that boat just came out of nowhere. But apparently it did. It's like it just came out of a portal and it's just there. Honestly, though, I think what happened is this, and this is the real logic of it. I think that creators just probably just thought, hey, you know what? The boat, basically, the whole purpose of the boat is to have items that you go on there to get. You know, because you have the 2 treasure chests there, and that's basically what it is. Now, granted, it doesn't make a lot of sense that it would just materialize out of nowhere, as well as these other smaller boats that have all these logs around them. I mean, I guess you could argue them possibly, but this big one, it's still floating and still intact. Nah, that doesn't make any logical sense at all. I even went to the spots right before you get to the actual lake to look down below, which you can explore more when you get the boat. But yeah, there's nothing that even resembles that of a gigantic boat that size that could be in the middle of the lake. But just to, you know, scratch all of the points off the checklist, I even went to the little spot underneath where the merchant resides down here, just to see if there might possibly be that gigantic boat down here before the whole fight. But no, nothing on the shoreline, nothing across from the shoreline. The only possible explanation I can honestly think of, other than this thing just came out of nowhere, is there is a little tunnel that loops around on the left side, you know, right behind me, but you have to have the boat to go. It goes that way, but it goes all the way around loop to the lake. Maybe it could possibly be in that tunnel, but this is a gigantic boat, and I don't know if it's even going to be able to fit in there, but unfortunately, I can't have any way to tell that because I don't have the boat to go over there. But that's the only logical explanation I could possibly think of. Otherwise, that boat literally just, I don't know, Doctor Strange portaled in the middle of this lake, because I cannot come up with anything that possibly resembles a logical conclusion how it got there in the first place. But maybe you guys can come up with a crazy theory of how this boat got here. As I said, none of these two things are that big and major, but they are fun to talk about, have a little fun at all, because sometimes we need a little fun in the Resident community, because some people just take things way too serious. But as I always like to say, that is my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. How do you think both of these mysteries went down? Do you think it's just simply that the developers just didn't think it through or forgot about it? Or is there actually some creative reason you could give me that how they actually got to where they mean to be with the heads not exploding and this boat coming out of nowhere? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back in the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.